You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. Oh, another gorgeous day in the coffee shop. Let's just hope we can keep Mr. Frog on the outside of the coffee shop. He is probably one of the few guests that is not welcome. Now, I'm looking for books on the table. There's a table. It's got 3 books. And the one on top says Rebel Rising. And the name on the front cover is Amanda J. Clay. How you doing today, Amanda?
Hi, Jesse. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, not a problem. I love talking books and writing.
Well, me too.
Most writers love to talk about their books and their writing.
We do.
All right. So tell me a little bit about Rebel Rising.
Okay, well, Rebel Rising is book 2 in my young adult series, the Rebel Song series. So Rebel Song takes place in a modern-day Central Europe, in a country that's on the brink of a revolution. So there's corruption spreading through the government, and there's a rebel faction that wants to see the monarchy abolished. And so they're rising up in the city. The story follows 17-year-old Rogan, and he's the son of a famous rebel leader that was executed for treason, and Elyra, who's the sole heir to the current monarch. So those two meet, they fall in love, but of course, given their sort of opposite sides of what's going on, they find themselves kind of on opposing sides of a revolution as the story progresses. So Rebel Rising picks up right where Rebel Song left off, and we are getting ready for war as we open up with book 2. So
that sounds absolutely fascinating. So it sounds like there's a little bit of coming of age mixed with the romantic adventure.
Yeah, it's sort of got, a lot of people, I've had people joke it's like a political thriller for teens. So you've got a lot of this sort of government and adventure and betrayal. And then, of course, this star-crossed love story going on. And these kids sort of having to grow up in a pretty rough time. I
think it sounds exciting. I love a great page turner.
Great. Thank you.
I'll read anything if it sits in front of me long enough.
That's the sign of a good reader.
That includes the cereal box, the tea box, whatever it happens to be. Are there words on it? I'll read it.
That's great.
Now, I will admit, I'm no writer.
Well, it's a different skill.
Put me in front of the microphone. I love it. I could hang out here with that little red light on saying on air all day. But ask me to put my thoughts down on paper or type them or craft them into a logical something. You've lost me already.
I understand. Well, I guess for the sake of us writers, I guess it's good that not everyone does it, right? No, I'm kidding. The more the merrier. But yes, I understand. It's a different skill that not everyone is comfortable with.
I like to say I'm the person you're writing the books for.
Exactly. We need an audience.
And besides, I'll read a book, whether it's a romance, a thriller, a YA, a nonfiction. Like I said, did it sit in front of me for more than about 40 seconds? I'm reading it.
That's great.
So how long did it take you to write Rebel Rising?
So Rebel Rising, I'm very proud because it was probably my fastest book yet. It only took me about 3 months. The first book, when I wrote the first book in the series, admittedly that probably took me 2 years because it was my first novel and I really didn't know what I was doing. But I practiced, I went to workshops, I read everything I could on craft, and I've gotten better every time. So I've gone from 2 years to 1 year to now 3 months, which is my record.
Now, was 3 months for the first draft or 3 months for the completed, ready-to-push published work?
I would say that it was about 3 months for a very solid draft. So maybe not including like the final proofreading and some of the beta reading, but from outline to writing the first draft and then going through it with my editor and getting it back. So kind of I worked in a slightly different way on Rebel Rising. I sort of worked, my editor and I worked together as I wrote it, kind of in a developmental sense. So it was a really fast process this time around, and it helped me. It was really great having, a partner to sound off ideas on, and it was sort of a different approach for me, and it worked out really great.
Well, Amanda, before I go any further, thank you for using an editor.
I use several, and you're welcome.
I have picked up traditionally published books that needed more editing. I have picked up self and indie published books and small press books that I could tell weren't well edited. And I almost never put a book down. Almost never. If the editing is so bad, I'm jolted out of the story every other page. I'm not finishing it.
Right. And editing is so important. I mean, a great cover, of course, a great synopsis, those are great selling pieces. But at the end of the day, the editing is the thing you really need to invest in, whether you're working with a traditional editor at a big house or if you're doing it independently. I say, that's where your dollars should go is in your time. Spend the time to go through it yourself, get a good content editor, and get a good proofreader at the end. So I put a lot of emphasis there.
Well, I'm willing to bet that it all your hard work and your emphasis shows. Now, you mentioned covers. Everybody says, don't judge a book by its cover. Everybody does. Everybody is guilty of judging books by their cover.
That's a lie. Yep. We all do it.
How did you get such a phenomenal cover?
Well, thank you. Well, I have a wonderful cover artist. His name is Peter O'Connor, and he works out of London. And he just has a great vision. When I was first getting ready to find a cover artist, I got a portfolio from tons of artists, and I was just I had a vision in my head. I wasn't really sure. I couldn't even really explain what it was, but I would know it when I see it, kind of thing. And he just came back with, it was like he was reading my mind. And so he's done all 3 of my books, and they're beautiful. So I lucked out with him. But I do agree, a cover is important. Not only does it have to be well designed, but it has to really speak to your genre. You want to manage your readers' expectations and make sure that if you have a romance cover, that they're getting a romance novel, out of it. So you don't want to upset your readers by not giving them what they think they're going to get. So I've been very happy with my covers.
Well, that is fantastic. And you're right. The cover kind of sets the expectations. It's our first glimpse into this world beneath it.
Yes.
And no offense, if your main character is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, what is that redhead doing on the cover?
Right. Exactly. And, we do. We're flipping through Amazon pages or on our iTunes, and we do. The images catch our attention. It's like advertising for your book. So
the other thing that drives me batty with covers, and I've seen it even on a traditionally published book. I'm not going to name names, but I've seen it. A book whose cover leads me to believe it's for either children or YA, but it's really adult, or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
This one cover I'm thinking of literally looked like a cartoon, but it was a very much adult book. I wouldn't even put it as so far as YA.
Interesting. And you're thinking somewhere along the line, whether if the marketing person or whoever was in charge, they had a vision, but maybe it just didn't work out. Whatever they were thinking, it didn't appeal to the right market.
Actually, what I was thinking is, what were they thinking?
Yeah, what were they thinking? Maybe they weren't thinking. I suppose we're all guilty of making mistakes along the way.
But when you make it through a whole series of books to that extent, traditionally published,
you got to wonder what they were thinking.
Yeah, my head's just scratching a little on that one. And I've never read it just because the cover was a turnoff, and I'll admit that. It's traditionally published. It's not something I chose to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I am guilty of judging a book by its cover.
I think we all are.
So you mentioned that you've got 2 books in a series. 2 books? Sounds like there's more coming.
There are. I have 2 books in a series, and then I do have one standalone novel. But the 3rd book in the series will actually be out in November. So I admittedly, I took a long time to get to the 2nd book. Just life happens. I had a full-time job before, and since I've been able to write full-time, I've really really doubled down and have gotten a lot of work done. So I am going to be releasing book 3 pretty shortly following. So I'm excited for that. I've been working like crazy. But it'll be great because people won't have to wait so long. They'll only have to wait a couple of months.
That is fantastic. Hint, I love repeat guests in the coffee shop.
Well, I would love to be back.
Well, we'll talk about that one off
Definitely.
air, but you're definitely invited back.
Wonderful. That's great.
All right, so how did you originally come up with this plot? Did you rip it out of the headlines, add a few twists? What inspired you?
Yeah, well, I've always been, ever since I was a little girl, I have been like a hopelessly tragic romantic. I've loved those stories. I was never attracted to sort of like happily ever after romances. I always liked the story where like the lovers couldn't be together or some very Shakespearean. And so that of course is kind of a strong theme in the book, but the plot line, it really came when I'm a big fan of European history, and I go to Europe a lot, and that's always where I want to go on whenever I travel. And I really started learning about a lot of the 20th century history of Europe and all these revolutions and collapsed monarchies and things that had really happened in the last 100 years that we kind of think of as really old-fashioned concepts, but they were still happening. And we kind of think of like, oh, kings and queens, like that's medieval, but the fact of it, there has been monarchies that have fallen apart as recently as 30 years ago, and revolutions that have overthrown them. So I got really fascinated by all these different stories of all these small countries all over Europe, and it just sort of spawned this tale, and so it became, next thing I knew, it was a trilogy.
So is the third book the final book in the series?
I think so. I always want to say that I'll leave it open in the case that my characters just don't leave me alone and they come knocking at my door. But it's planned to just be a 3-book series at this time.
So when you finish with these characters, what's on the horizon?
Well, so I have a couple of other things in the works, more in the mystery space. So I have sort of a classic Gothic ghost story that's actually coming out in October. Before Halloween. It's a little bit of a shorter novel, but then early next year I have some mysteries in the works, so kind of more always a little bit of a love story, because I'm a romantic at heart, so I always have a little romance thrown in there, but I have a couple of murder mysteries, so which have been super fun to write. It's who knew that writing about murder would be so fun.
Well, some of my favorite murder plots have been found in some very intriguing books and places, so
yes.
I love reading them.
That's great. So
like I
a
said,
busy couple of months.
Don't ask me to put pen to paper, but I'll read anything you put in front of me.
That's great. I appreciate a rabid reader like that. I think it's wonderful. That's what all of us authors, that's what we love, you guys.
I read about 3 novels a week.
Oh, that's incredible. That is incredible.
So you mentioned that you gave up working full-time to write full-time.
I did, yes.
How did that transition? Was it hard for you to not get distracted by things around the house? Because if you're working at your home, are you distracted by the dishes and the kids and the laundry and the fact that the kitchen floor needs mopping? Or are you able to turn that stuff off and just go away in your corner and write?
I'm getting better, a little of both. When I had a full-time job, I was working in communications, and I would work from home, a couple days a week. A lot of big companies are doing that. And so I had started to work from home, and so I was kind of used to that. But then when I quit and just started doing it full time, I found it was difficult to be in my house all the time, to not have that reason to sort of get up, get to the gym, go, commute to the office, having that. And so it took a lot of self-discipline to create a routine and a schedule. I set up an office in my house, and so I have I have a place to go, and I try to keep it just my creative space. But it's true, when you're stuck, when you're having a bit of a block, it's really easy to be like, well, I think the laundry needs to get done, or I think I probably need to clean the bathroom yet again, or anything to distract you from this, whatever trouble you're having in your writing. And then of course, if you're, I don't have any children, so I imagine it'd be really difficult if you had kids at home too, but my other half will sometimes, pop in and, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's like, I'm in the middle of writing, go away, So you have to learn to you have to be disciplined. You have to really I continuously remind myself, I read books on organization, and I really try to keep sort of a 9 to 5, if you will. I try to keep my Monday through Friday very organized and structured so that I'm treating my writing like a job, because it's easy to what am I trying to say? It's hard to do that sometimes, to transition from that sort of hobby mindset to, no, this is my full-time job, but I've gotten a lot better at it. So.
Well, I think that would be some good advice for writers who are looking to make that transition.
Yeah. One of the things that helped me and people laugh at me, but I get a lot of like, oh, you work from home all the time. That's awesome. You could work in your pajamas. And I did at first. I thought it was amazing. I just worked in my yoga pants all the time. But I found that I started to, get dressed. I go to the gym in the morning, and then I would get dressed, put on some makeup, maybe put on some jewelry. And I just sort of felt better, kind of as if I was treating it like I was going to my office. And that sort of helped me with my productivity and staying focused. So I think you just find these little things that work for you. And, so sometimes a girl just needs some red lipstick to feel productive,
Don't knock it till you've tried it. I must admit, I have a home studio. I'm usually recording at my home studio, and I actually moved my studio into, of all places, the garage.
Nice.
Because I could literally leave the house, enter the garage, and shut the door. And that made the difference for me. Mm-hmm. I was closing the door on the house. The house was blocked off. I'm inside my own little set of 4 walls.
That's great.
Neither myself nor my husband parks in the garage because, well, it's filled with storage stuff. Now, my office in the garage took shape over a period of time, of course. And it, believe it or not, started with a couple of cardboard boxes I'd moved into place because I started finding myself out in the garage more and more because I enjoyed that. I just close the door on the house, so I don't see the laundry. I don't see the dishes.
That's very helpful. That's great.
And now, 9 times out of 10, people come by, they just automatically walk through the front door and walk into the garage if they're looking for me.
They know you're in there. That's great to have a separate space where you're just not seeing anything.
Literally, for me, it was the act of being able to close that door.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, I get up every day, get dressed, all the way down to my shoes.
Yep.
I don't work in my sweatpants, yoga pants, pajamas, with 99% of the time. There are those days where I just feel like crud, but I've got to finish editing an audio file to get something out. All right, I'll do it. And I'm probably in my sweats.
We all have our lazy days.
But most of the time, yeah. I got up, I got dressed, I did my morning routine, and there's a cup of coffee with me, and on bad days, the whole coffee pot on my desk.
Gotta have the coffee. But no, I agree. Routine and feeling your best. I mean, I think that's really important to sort of at-home productivity. And sometimes I leave the house too. I'll find a coffee shop or something nearby and to get out of the house for a couple of hours, go down to the park, get some fresh air. And sometimes a little change of scenery helps too for me.
I bet. I can't imagine being inside the same 4 walls all the time. Because trust me, I do escape. I run away.
Yes.
Run away.
It can be challenging, absolutely.
So you have 4 books coming out in a relatively short period of time.
Yes.
You had this one out in September. You've got one scheduled for October, another one scheduled for November, and then another one for January.
Yes.
Talk about serious self-imposed deadline.
Oh my, yes. I had a moment this last week where I was like, what did I get myself into? So you have to, so I am an independent published author, and you do have to have those self-imposed deadlines, because you want to be mindful of your editors and your cover artists and whoever it is that you're working with on your team, that you're keeping their schedule in mind. But then if you don't set your own deadlines, you might not do it. So, but I have an aggressive kind of fall winter schedule. I was going a little bananas this week, but it's finally starting to mellow out.
Hey, whatever it takes to make it work for you. So I don't know if you ever heard of this, but a lot of the authors I've talked to participate in this. It's called NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Yep, I do it every year.
I'm a fan of Rymos. In fact, I have a NaNoWriMo chat room on my website, jessiescoffeeshop.com, and I affectionately will pop in and ask how my wordsmiths are doing and chitter-chat with them for a minute.
That's great support. I'm a huge fan of NaNoWriMo. A couple of my books have sort of come out of that, or at least I've done a huge chunk of work on them during that time. Because one of the biggest challenges for writers is sort of getting over that mental block of just sitting down and writing every day. And these days, I aim for 6,000 or 7,000 words a day. But when I first started, NaNoWriMo, just getting 1,000 words a day, or I think it's 1,600 words a day is sort of what you're supposed to target. I mean, that was a huge challenge for me in the beginning. And, I think there's writers who struggle just to get down a paragraph every day. So just building that habit where you sit down and you force the words out and you have this deadline, and it's fun because you're doing it with other writers. And but yeah, I think it's just a wonderful event.
They say editing is slaying your darling. Have you ever had that one scene that you loved it, but it just didn't move the story forward, that you had to take out?
Yes, I've had a couple. I think every book you have them, and whether it's sometimes I'll just I had one where there was a scene between two characters, and I just loved the interaction. Actually, there was a scene in Rebel Song, the first book I wrote, where there was sort of a flashback to when they were young, and it was this scene of them as young kids, and you're kind of getting a glimpse into what their life was like and their interactions. And I was really in love with it. But at the end of the day, it was backstory that it was kind of bogging down the flow. So in my mind, I still know that happened, but I did have to finally cut it. But I kind of did it kicking and screaming. I didn't want to let it go. And I think every book you do run into that a little bit. Sometimes it's just a beautiful piece of prose. You're like, oh, it's so poetic. Look at me. I'm a literary genius, but it's just sort of a pointless ramble. So you gotta just slash it out. And you get more ruthless, I think, as you go. That first novel, I think, is the most difficult. You're so attached to those words, and you're so attached to every scene that you're so hesitant to want to get rid of any of it. I think in my first iteration of my first book, we cut like 30,000 words from the original manuscript because it was just, which is common in new writers. You don't quite have that editing brain.
Now, you didn't delete those precious words, did you?
I didn't. I kept them, and I actually was able to repurpose a lot of it. In later, either as just backstory for my own head, like I just need to know that this happened. Some of it I was just able to repurpose in other ways. So I never delete anything, any scenes that I write. I just keep a running spreadsheet, or like a Word document, and I just save all my random prose. Even if it's just a sentence that I really like, I'll keep it because I might use it again.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Now, unfortunately, with everything, there is a price to pay. And yes, it is time to pay those radio station bills. So I'm going to pour Amanda a fresh cup of coffee, and we are going to take that ever-loving commercial break, and I will see you on the other side. All right, thank y'all for hanging in there with us while we paid those radio station bills. Yes, like I said, with everything, there is a price to pay. So, Amanda, now that we're back in the coffee shop, what is your favorite coffee shop treat?
Well, I think if I had to choose, it would be a really good cappuccino with a fresh croissant. I think that's my favorite.
Oh, croissants are yum. Gotta have that
Yes.
caffeine, though, there in the cappuccino.
You do. And I don't drink a lot of cappuccinos. I try to be just a black coffee kind of girl. But if I'm really looking for a treat, like a cappuccino with whole milk, just really decadent, yeah, hard to go wrong there.
Oh, yum. My thing is, does it have caffeine?
Yes, I know.
Answer yes. I'm on
Us
it.
writers know all about that. We're caffeine addicts for sure.
How do you think I came up with the name of my show?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
I love it. I have fun with it. So we were talking a little bit off air, and I'm going to say we mentioned a little bit about writer's block in the beginning, but we never truly said, how do you conquer writer's block?
Right. Well, I'm going to say something that might be controversial, but I no longer believe in writer's block. I think it's that when you're experiencing it, that feeling where you just can't write. I mean, I used to be an avid believer that yes, it's a physical ailment. And I really just think it's that whatever you're doing is not working. It's hard, and we are naturally, our brains naturally don't want to do things that are hard. And it's something that I've had to learn when I am experiencing that. I just have to put something on the page. Even if it's not beautiful, even if it's going to be completely changed later on, even if it's as simple as, Jack went to the store and something happened to him. I just put something on the page and I work through it, and I just keep moving. So I do think that there's things that you can do when you're really struggling. Go for a walk, maybe just take a few minutes and read a good book to try to get some, juices flowing, put on some great music. There are things I think you can do to stimulate your creativity. But I honestly think the best thing for writer's block is just to keep going, just to keep moving through it and kind of force it. Somebody said something funny to me once. It kind of put it into perspective. Writers sometimes feel like, oh, I just can't do my job today. And they said, well, you know what? A fireman doesn't show up and think, oh, I just can't fight fires today. They just have to do it. And so I always think of that whenever I'm struggling, kind of force it.
Well, I think that is a great analogy. And there are those occupations in life where calling in sick or taking the random day off, I just can't do it, just isn't an option. So that's a great analogy.
Right. And of course, not to compare, the physical stress of writing a book to, say a firefighter, but it's sort of just something good to keep in mind that if you're going to treat it like a job, there are days you're not going to be as good at your job, but you just have to still show up and do it.
I actually think it's a great analogy, and you are the second or third author in the coffee shop who said they don't believe in writer's block.
And I'm sure people out there are thinking, but no, of course I have writer's block. But once I sort of came to that conclusion, I realized that it was just, I was having a hard day, but I still had to do my job.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your sites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
One guest in the coffee shop said that when they're struggling with writer's block, chances are they're trying to get their characters to do something that they wouldn't, it's out of character.
Absolutely. And I do fully agree with that. Our characters, our story, they take on a life of their own. And I do think if you're really struggling, stop and take a look at what you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to force your character into something, maybe you're just writing a scene that isn't working. And that subconscious in the back of your brain is kind of telling you it's not working, try something different. So I do have like a few exercises I'll go through. I have some questions that I can, ask myself if I'm struggling with a scene to kind of try to work through why I'm having that difficulty. So I agree with that.
Now, your writing style, are you a plotter? You've got this whole big outline, multi-pages written of an outline, a pantser, no clue what's going to happen. Or are you one of those hybrids where you've got plot point A, plot point B, and plot point C, but how you're getting from A to B and B to C is anybody's guess?
Right. In the beginning, I was definitely a lot more of a pantser. I am pretty solidly a plotter these days. I have discovered that going into when I have a great idea for something, building an outline, I use sort of a screenplay act model and going through and really building that out. Sometimes to the scene before I start writing has really helped me. Now, not to say that as I'm going through my very detailed outline, sometimes I realize the things that, that doesn't really work there. Or, I get inspiration along the way and I move things around, of course. So I don't take all the creativity, the spontaneous creativity out of it. But for me, if you're going to write quickly, especially, I found that having a very good outline and a character chart and all that is really helpful for me.
Now, you mentioned character chart. Do you use special software like Scrivener or other specially developed software for writing, or do you just use Microsoft Office, Excel, whatever, what have you?
Yeah, I use Scrivener and I love it. It was a game changer for me when I discovered it. I really didn't believe in fancy software, and I kind of don't. I don't necessarily believe that you have to have apps and special software and project management tools and all this stuff to be productive. I don't think that. But so I was really just a solid Microsoft Word person forever. And I finally tried Scrivener, and I have to admit, it was a game changer for me. I just, the way you can organize your scenes, the way you can build these character charts, it's an incredible program. And so I'll still write, I'll get the rough draft kind of done in Scrivener, and then I do put it in Microsoft Word when I'm doing kind of cleaning it up and stuff. Because I like the visual presentation of Microsoft Word better. But as far as outlining and getting that first draft done, Scrivener is amazing.
Well, I've heard writers use all kinds of software. So
yeah, I think ultimately whatever works best for you, I think you find the thing that's going to help you be the most productive. I have a writer friend who all she does is, she writes everything down on like a cocktail napkin before, like that's her outlining, so everybody has their own style.
Hey, she'd be considered the hybrid probably. She's got plot point A, plot point B, and plot point C.
Yes, exactly.
But I think it's great that you're not so bound by your outline, that you're not willing to let it flow and change as your creativity flows.
I think that's and it's you have to keep your mind open to, like I said, I think that your characters take on a mind of their own as you build them, and sometimes they want to do something different than you originally thought. And even with I've had books. I have my murder mystery that's coming out in January. I had a very detailed outline when I first started, but things change. You go, oh, actually that sounds great, or someone might give you feedback. I have a couple of great critique partners, and sometimes they'll give you a suggestion, and you're like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? So you definitely want to keep an open mind and let the structure is good, but you want to let the creativity flow too.
Well, as I've heard one of my favorite authors, Brad Thorpe, say, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader, no joy in the writer, no joy in the reader.
Absolutely. Those are true words.
I can't think of anything better than when I'm reading a book and I think I know where it's going and I think I got this figured out, and boom, there's a curveball out of left field.
Oh, yeah. And I think you can do that in any genre. It doesn't have to be mystery, thriller. I think even a very formulaic, if you will, a romance where you kind of know what's typically what happens in a romance novel. But I love it when an author throws in some kind of great twist and you're like, oh, maybe they won't live happily ever after, or maybe they won't catch the killer. Even though common sense tells you it's like they are going to catch the killer. So I think when an author does that, it's great. It really makes you doubt.
Now, as a reader, when I open the book and step into those pages, as a writer, you're asking me to suspend disbelief and go on this journey. Mm-hmm. But I have a problem if you suddenly do something that is so jarring, like the Washington Monument shows up in downtown Detroit, and you don't back that up with plot.
Yeah.
Or something happened that it was moved. You do something like that, and I just find it jarring. So do you do a lot of research to make sure you don't jar your characters out or jar your readers out of the manuscript?
I do. Of course, so my Rebel Song series, it is while it's set in the real world, it's set in a fictional country. I made up a place for it. So that, it is sort of my own world, and I can do things, but there are rules when creating your own world. And so you have to be mindful that things do make sense, and you want to research real places to get a sense. Even when you're making up a city, you want to kind of have a general understanding of how a city would work and what's realistic and all those things. So I do try to keep that in mind. And there's also, to your point, jarring the reader. It can be a fine line between throwing in a great plot twist and doing something that's just going to make them mad. And, especially when writing young adult, sometimes you have to check yourself. And, if what I'm doing is a really good twist, or is it just for shock value? And is that going to offend somebody? Writing a murder mystery, you've got to make sure things are realistic and that it's what people would actually do. You can only ask your reader to suspend disbelief so much. Things still have to make sense in the context of the world that they're invested in. So I agree with you. You can lose your credibility with the reader if you suddenly do something that just is so unexpected or so outside, what they're looking for. So it's kind of a delicate art. Some authors seem to be able to throw anything at you, and no matter how insane, and they can make you believe it. But I do think it's a talent.
Well, I actually read a traditionally published mainstream book that absolutely infuriated because I knew the city it was set in. And this person had I'm all for a literary license. This person had taken it to the point where he had two parallel streets intersecting, and having walked those streets, it was just a complete turnoff.
Right. You're like, you've never actually been to the city, have you?
It's just a number of things. So I think the fact that you mentioned that you travel and to Europe, where your story is, the lands that your story is essentially based around, is a fantastic thing. And I think that is something more writers need to do, is do their homework.
I agree. And I know that not everyone, maybe traveling all the time isn't necessarily feasible for a lot of people, but if you're going to write about a real place, you have to really do your research and understand it. I mean, if you can at all, I mean, go visit the city if you can. And I even think like with Rebel Rising, it's a made up place, but like you said, I traveled through the area that it's supposed to be. So while I can take some creative license in creating my own city, and of course I can lay it out however I envision it, I want to make sure that it's true to that area. If it's in Central Europe, well, I want to make sure I understand the topography, the demographics, all that stuff of Central Europe. So I do try to keep it as believable as possible to my readers.
Now, you mentioned you've made up your own city. So do you ever provide your readers a map of your made-up country or world?
I haven't. I've gotten asked that question, and I suppose it might be something that I could put together. It's something I'll look into for sure. It's not a very complex. The most of the story takes place in this country and mostly in the main capital city. But I should look into putting together a little map and give people a layout. That's a pretty good idea.
I always think it's fun because then when you mention X village so far outside of the capital, I can kind of see, oh yeah, that's up in this. And no wonder it took them 2 days to walk there. It was,
right.
It was tough terrain. And I know you told me that, but for me to be able to look at the map, it kind of grounds it in my mind as a reader.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I love the big fantasy books and that have the maps and, like the Game of Thrones series, The Song of Ice and Fire. It's got the very intricate map of the world, and it is great as a reader to have that visual. I agree. So I'm going to make a note of that, and so hopefully I'll commission somebody who I don't think my drawing skills should be trusted. So I'll have to find someone who could put that together for me.
Oh, there's only one author who I know that I've had in the coffee shop, and when he told me he did his own covers, I gasped, and then he's like, well, in my previous life, my previous career, I was an artist. Oh,
there
okay.
You go.
You're excused.
Yeah, some people do have the talent to do it. I agree. I mean, I'm all for people, utilize. One of the great things about being an independently published author is you can do that. But I wouldn't recommend it unless you're actually a graphic artist.
No, neither would I. I mean, because I've, just like with my example of dumping a city where it doesn't belong, you could do something just as jarring with your cover and make me go, what were you thinking? Now, of course, I gave a traditionally published example of that too.
Right. It can happen anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. What were you thinking, or were you thinking? And I'm willing to suspend disbelief, like you said, as long as you're not taking me so far out on that limb that it no longer makes sense.
Right. It has to make sense in the world that you're in.
Exactly. I mean, the rules for Hogwarts don't make sense in Detroit.
Right.
But they make sense for the world of Hogwarts.
Absolutely. I think that's the key to it.
So you've got the book from October, the book from November, and another book in January. What do you do when you're not sitting pounding the keys, creating new stories? How do you unwind?
Well, yeah. So for these days, I'm a big fitness person. I go to the gym or go for runs, probably 6 out of 7 days a week. It's great because I love to go on long runs, and it's really good thinking time for me. I do a lot of book planning, actually, or I listen to podcasts or an audiobook. So I do a lot of that. And then I travel. I travel. I'm actually getting ready to go on a trip to Europe here pretty quickly in the next few weeks. And it's really the thing that it's my second passion in life. Writing is definitely my first passion, and travel is the second thing that I live for. So I do that. And then, I love to unwind with anything cultural. I love going to a museum or going to see some music or a play or things like that. I love to eat now. I love a new restaurant. I'm a big foodie. But I would say the big things in my life are my writing, fitness, and then traveling.
Now, every author in this day and age is expected to have an online platform.
Yes.
That website, Twitter, Facebook, all these social media things. How much time does that take away from your writing to be active in these places?
It can be a real time suck. You have to be mindful of it. I recommend, and I from talking to a lot of very active writers, really setting aside a designated time every day for that. Because you can go down the rabbit hole of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I try to have a presence on the major platforms. It is a great place to interact with fans, and people expect it, and it can be fun. I mean, I'm a big fan of Instagram. I like the visuals, so I do enjoy posting photos and interacting with my fans a lot. But I have to make sure that, for example, if it's writing time, if I'm doing my block, that the social media is off, that my phone is turned off, that I'm not on the websites, and just really focus. Because if you have like your notifications on, say, and you're getting Facebook messages, it's very easy to just like, oh, I'm going to check this real quick. And then the next thing you know, you've just wasted another 30 minutes, looking at cat videos, which are great, but they're definitely distracting. So you have to be mindful of it. Kind of plan out. Some people plan out what they're going to do, what they're going to post. And admittedly, there are authors out there who are much better at it than I am with social media. There are some out there they are absolute machines when it comes to their social media. And I'm not as active as I probably should be, but it is true. It can distract you a lot from the actual work that needs to get done during the day.
Well, that's great. Now, if you had to pick 3 platforms you would suggest to a new writer, what 3 things would you say that a new writer should have before they're published?
Well, I definitely, if we're talking platforms in general, a website is critical. You need a landing page for your books. And I would really recommend, you can get your feet wet with a free, like a WordPress site. But once you really get comfortable, I'd really recommend hosting your own website, a place where you can link to to Amazon or iTunes or whatever, but have a home that you can talk about your books. Maybe you can blog, post about yourself, all that stuff. So that's critical. And then when it comes to social media, I would say a Facebook is probably important. It's sort of pretty universal, people across all platforms. Plus, it gives you some really great advertising opportunities. And it's a good place to interact with fans. And then thirdly, I would say go to the one that makes sense for your demographic. Writing young adult novels, Instagram was a natural fit at the time. It was a lot more young people were getting involved in Instagram and Snapchat and those. Whereas maybe if you write adult thrillers or contemporary romance, maybe you don't have a big fan base on that. So I would say try your hand at different things. So get a website, get a Facebook page, and then maybe try out some of the other ones, check them out and see where you find your fans. Goodreads, I think that while it's there's not much of a profile on Goodreads, but I think it is important for an author to be present on Goodreads because people will start to look for you. You never know where they're going to look for you. They'll kind of look for you all over the place depending on the social media or the platforms that they like to use. So just do a little research and find out where your fans are. Like Twitter, for example. I'm on Twitter and I connect with other writers and other industry people on Twitter, but I don't really have a lot of fans that follow on Twitter because it just really isn't there. That's not really the place that they're looking to follow authors that they like. So while I check it out to interact with industry people, I'm not really using it for a promotional tool. So I don't think it's a one size fits all, but yes, definitely get a website up there first and foremost.
I think that is great advice. And speaking of social media, at this point in the interview, I always give everyone who appears in the coffee shop an opportunity to share their social media contact information.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, you can find me at my website at amandajclay.com. And of course, you can find all the information about my current books, what's coming up, just a little bit of fun facts about me, and you can connect with me on social media that way. Or I am on Facebook at Amanda J. Clay Books. So Facebook/Amanda J. Clay Books. And also my Instagram handle is Amanda J. Clay Books as well. So you can follow me on those places. And you're also feel free to email me if you ever want to. And that's just amandajclaybooks@gmail.com. And I love hearing from people. So always want to connect with people. And anyway.
Well, thank you very much. And for anyone looking to track me down, you can find me on Twitter at Jessie's POV. That's JESSIES POV. You can find the coffee shop at jessiescoffeeshop.com. And you can always shoot me an email at the station at Jessie, JESSIE, at KLRNradio.com. And now I'm going to do what I've been dying to do this whole interview. I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee, snatch these books off the table, and open the cover of Rebel Rising and dive right into a good book. And I will see you folks next time in the coffee shop.